Here, in the Cape St. Martin Private Nature Reserve, Louis and Hardy's house sits on a peninsula where they watch the sun rise and set over the Atlantic Ocean.
So the two of you are chasing the sun between France and the West Coast. How did you decide upon this spot?
We decided on the West Coast because we both like the bleakness and the sheer contrast with France. And we rented houses around the corner here, and we walked up to this spot. The moon came up over the ocean. It was positively magical. And he says to me, "Do you want this place?" I said, "What do you mean? Of course I want it." And here we stand at exactly the same spot. 2 years later, the house is now complete.
And it's spectacular.
Well, I think Leonard did a good job for us in interpreting exactly what we wanted within the constraints of what is allowed within this development, because it is quite restricting in a way, but we love it here.
Glass walls disappear into the outer walls, revealing French antiques in an otherwise modern interior. Louis XIV-style chairs are placed next to contemporary Italian designs, and this great Aubusson tapestry.
This is incredible. Is it an original?
Absolutely, it's a piece that dates from the 17th century, and in this particular scene, it shows Aphrodite and her new husband, Ares, and of course Cupid still in the background there, but being pulled by lions in a chariot filled with summer produce.
This is an amazing centerpiece, but I see you have a collection of eclectic art.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it interesting by juxtaposing French and old and new. I like collecting contemporary South African art. In the foyer, as you come in, you have that Aegean-like figure on a horse from Adrian Diedrichs. The Rain Taster, which I think is a nice tongue-in-the-cheek piece by Frank van Rienen. And beautiful white embroidered piece by Sandra Hanekom.
Yeah, and of course a lot of it's also from auctions, which is one of my favorite pastimes in France. So apart from tapestries, furniture, crystal chandeliers, if it's a bargain, I buy it.
Is that where you got that chandelier from?
No, this one actually has quite an interesting story.
It comes from a demolished villa on the island of Zamalek in Cairo. And that so beautifully illuminates the in contrast with a modern kitchen.
And I believe the kitchen is your domain, Hardy.
Yeah, I find myself in the kitchen. I enjoy cooking. But we try to keep it quite simple and just nice open spaces that work practically and function well.
And Louis, where's your space in the house?
When Hardy goes into full-on cooking mood, I have to slip away silently to my secret studio space upstairs.
The cantilevered staircase was cast on site and finished in the same white cement as the floors. Its free-floating design is an artistic introduction to Louis' workspace, where the sunlight is ideal for painting, and the view of Kaloonie's Bay is a constant inspiration.
Okay, welcome to my space. This is where I create. At the moment, I'm busy with a series of portraits that actually are deconstructed fairy tales. As you know, I've written a couple of stories, and I therefore love narrative, and I try to actually use that in my painting as well.
What is it about the space that inspires you?
Do you know, Jade? It's basically the views that surround me. There are a couple of interlinking balconies, and wherever I turn, I see the magic of nature. From time to time, I just glance over the ocean. It's a magical space.
And Hardy, what is your favorite painting of Louis'?
There are two in this house. It's from a series of portraits that he did of a young girl that was a student at La Crozette about 2-3 years ago. But then, of course, he started painting these massive portraits, and there are two of them that he did of Christina that are absolutely wonderful, because she changes from this very serene person into this absolute virago where her hair almost actually does turn to snakes, and that's the way he depicted her.
Previously, Top Billing visited this gifted duo in their manor house, Château de la Cruzette in France. Guests from all over the world joined them here for theme holidays, and a book about it was long overdue.
So you've taken your artistic skills and your culinary skills and published a new book together.
Referring to stories, again, this time the book deals not only with recipes, but with stories. That is why it's aptly called The Story of a House. It deals with a family that lived there before us. For 200 years, we are basically the second owners of this magnificent building. And they are the most beguiling stories that creep out of the woodwork. It deals with different textures, different feelings, and of course, beautiful tastes. The old Countess was a formidable cook herself, and she has some serious family recipes kind of mingling through what we were doing. And then Hardy steps into her shoes and he becomes the culinary chef for La Crozette.
My role is always to try and interpret sometimes classical French dishes into something that becomes easy to make, and also for the South African palate very specifically.
The book is an epic tale of the rich history of the chateau and its 15-year restoration. Hardy and Louis have included almost 90 new recipes and share their easy shortcuts and tips. Much easier than the plans for their beach house with architect Leonard de Klerk.
How did the two of you decide on a design for the house?
And there were some taxing moments.
He had his specific ideas of what he wanted to do, and I had mine. We just come back from a wonderful holiday in Italy, and I just loved the architecture around Pompeii. But of course, Louis wanted 34 bedrooms, I wanted one. We have enough bedrooms at the house in France, so...
Imagine an erupting volcano on the west coast. I mean, it didn't make sense. And at the point, after confusing Leonard so much with whatever we wanted to do, he said, boys, look, I'm going to go now and want you to get it straight, phone me.
Well, I think it started happening when Louis took a back seat because, you know, too many cooks spoil the broth, so to speak. And I took over and then started working with Leonard. So I kind of left it up to him in the beginning, and then I intervened and adapted what he proposed to our needs.
And Leonard, what was it like working with the restrictions of a nature reserve and Hardy in the one ear and Louis in the other ear?
Yeah, with Louis and Hardy on one side, they've almost bought the plot next door and designed another house there for both their needs. I think the biggest challenge is to design something on this properties in Cape St. Martin is the size of the plot at first, because that's only 400 square meters. And then you've got a limitation on the 225 square meter footprint of the house. But the nice thing about this property is it's north facing, so you can actually design a house with the living areas and patio areas straight into your northern view.
Well, gentlemen, it sounds like this house has a story of its own.
We love it here.
Designed with only one guest room. If you crack an invite here, you are the bee's knees.